This is Seeker, a LitRPG serial by Leland Artra, created by text-to-audio technology.
Chapter 5, Trap Set. Aiden's deal with Eldrick was straightforward. Manage the Forge's workload efficiently, and the research trip with Bram was his. Confident in his son's resilience, Eldrick agreed. Each day unfolded with the precision of a well-oiled machine. At dawn, Aiden was already in the small aviary, coaxing chirps and songs from his feathered charges. These moments were more than mere training. They were a dance of trust and command, critical for the birds that fetched the highest prices at market, specifically those that responded to calls, endured human touch, and perched calmly on offered limbs. The birds that resisted domestic charms were granted their freedom, a nod to their untamable spirits. Breakfast was a quick affair, shared with Eldrick amidst the clatter of plans and the day's forge assignments. Then the real work began. The smithy was a tempest of sparks and sweat as father and son bent iron and steel to their will, crafting everything from horseshoes to all the various intricate metalworks required by the village that required the steady hands of the master and son. Amidst the clang of metal and shower of sparks, Aiden's mind often drifted to his mechanical adversary in the woods, the elusive red bird. As twilight approached, Aiden tested his latest invention in the quiet forest. Each new bird trap, an iteration from wood and simple gravity to a full steel cage using springs and gears. The cage became a testament to Aiden's craft. But this was no ordinary trap. It was the centerpiece of a week-long chess game with the winged trap master. Each day, Aiden introduced a slightly altered version of the trap, humorously imagining the red bird's bafflement. On the third day, he stopped putting out the smaller traps and only left the one primary trap for the mid-sized red bird he'd caught sight of, and was surely the smartest animal he'd ever encountered. "Let's see you puzzle this one out," he muttered one evening, setting a redesigned trigger that was subtler than the last. He pictured the bird cocking its head, eyeing the contraption with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. On the fourth day, Aiden fancied he could see the bird's invisible smirk from the treetops, as if it were taunting him. "Maybe today, my feathered friend," he whispered, tweaking the bait mechanism to be more enticing yet more challenging to breach. The smithy days blurred into evenings of innovation and silent conversations with an unseen foe. Eldrick, noticing his son's nightly disappearances and chuckles, shook his head and laughed as he left Aiden for the tavern. On the 10th day, a grin unfurled on Aiden's face as he admired the finished trap, his creation gleaming under the workshop's dim lights. The tenacious bird had outsmarted 9 previous versions of Aiden's traps, each defeat a notch in its metaphorical belt. This final model, however, boasted an improved door mechanism. Subtly enhanced, it appeared nearly identical to the last. Aiden chuckled, imagining the bird's smug satisfaction as it thought it could disable the lock once more. "You might think you're clever," he murmured to the absent bird, "but let's see you handle this twist." Hidden within the intricacies of the trap was a secondary lock, a blend of Bram's magic and Aiden's craftsmanship. This lock wasn't just mechanical, it was enchanted, designed to confound and capture their feathered foe with an elegance that belied its robust security. Special ward pins Bram created would slip into concealed slots within the trap's frame. They'd be completely invisible to prying eyes, especially those that clever bird. As Aiden secured the last components, a flicker of regret passed through him. Capturing such a wily creature felt like ending a grand game of wits. Perhaps, he mused, he might train the bird, turn this contest of cunning into a partnership of sorts. The idea of taming such a spirited opponent into a companion brought a softer smile to his face. On the morning of their departure, Aiden packed the trap alongside his gear, a smirk etching his features as he envisioned outsmarting the red bird at last. His steps were light with anticipation as he stepped out of the door, the forest around him alive with the rustling whispers of leaves. Nature itself seemed to buzz with the electricity of an impending showdown. As he latched the front gate, Eldrick emerged from the smithy, his hands darkened by soot, a sturdy apron draped over his broad frame. The forge was just beginning to crackle with the fresh fire for the day's work, its fiery breath chasing away the chill of the morning. "Aiden," Eldrick called. Aiden turned, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "I saw that trap you finished up last night," Eldrick began, whipping his hands on his apron as he approached. His eyes, sharp and assessing, softened with a hint of pride. "You've done solid work improving it, son. More intricate than your usual fare." Aiden blinked, surprised. "You've been checking on it?" "Of course," Eldrick chuckled, his beard twitching with amusement. "You think I wouldn't notice something like that taking shape in my own smithy? It's clever the way you designed those locks. Might have a few uses around here, too." Aiden felt a warm flush of pride. "Thanks, Dad. I hope it works." "A good design like that it will." Eldrick clapped him on the back, his gaze turning thoughtful. "You've got a good head on your shoulders. Just make sure you use it out there. Not just for traps, but for staying out of trouble, too." "I will. It's just 5 days, maybe a week. I'll be careful," Aiden reassured him, adjusting the strap of his pack. Eldrick nodded, then pulled Aiden into a firm, brief hug. "Take care of yourself. Come back for supplies if you need to stay longer. Bram's been talking at Jack's every night about exploring those old ruins. He's more excited than the kids when cake comes out of the oven." Stepping back, Aiden grinned. "Will do. See you soon, Dad." As he turned to leave, Eldrick called after him. "And bring back stories, not just that bird." Aiden laughed, his heart light. "Will try my best," he called back, heading towards the path that would lead him to Bram's bookshop, and beyond that, to the unknown adventures that awaited with the cunning red bird. As he walked to Bram's bookstore, Aiden's mind churned with worry. His inability to catch more birds was more than a minor setback. It threatened the very heart of his livelihood. With his traps constantly sabotaged by that cunning red bird, his usually bountiful catch had dwindled to a precious few. The coins he needed to procure materials for the traps and bird care were slipping through his fingers like sand. He might need to revert to foraging for seeds and other natural materials, a method he hadn't relied on since his early days. The winter was approaching and preparations had to be made. Reluctantly, Aiden realized he would have to sell nearly all his current flock to afford these necessities. The 7 canaries, always a market favorite, would fetch a good price. Yet, there was one he could not bring himself to sell. Hannah, the small blue parrotlet he had nurtured from a nestling. She was more than just a bird, she was a companion. Whenever Aiden stepped into the aviary, Hannah would flutter to his shoulder, nuzzling against his neck in a show of affection no other bird offered. She had an uncanny knack for herding the shyer birds towards him, aiding in their training with her enthusiastic participation in tricks and commands, always eager for her share of rewards. He did have 4 sunbirds which were a spectacle of nature's artistry, their feathers a kaleidoscope of greens, blues, and reds. Though skittish and whimsical, they were manageable and mesmerizing in their beauty. They'd been training up nicely and he'd have to sell them all. In the end, it would just be Hannah, and she'd be lonely over the winter if left in the aviary. It was large and warm enough he could sleep in it to keep her company. Entering Bram's bookstore, Aiden found his friend already outfitted for their journey. Bram stood in a sturdy cloak and simple attire, a stark contrast to the complexities swirling in Aiden's thoughts. Bram held up a set of hinge pins. Originally, when Aiden had crafted them, they were merely elongated pins that curved into a horseshoe shape, ending in a small, flat, circular decoration about the size of a chera. Now they were transformed. Instead of the simple round decoration, each pin featured long, narrow leaves that draped elegantly downward, concealing the entire hinge. "Why did you change them?" Aiden asked, eyeing the altered pins with a mix of curiosity and amusement. Bram handed one to Aiden for closer inspection. "I thought about that clever creature disarming your traps. If it's smart enough to do that, it might recognize what the ward pins are for," he explained. "So I used a bit of shaping magic to disguise them with these leaf decorations." Aiden turned the pin in his hand, chuckling. "You really expect a bird to know about magical wards? What's next? Teaching it to read spell books." Bram grinned, playing along. "You never know, Aiden. We might just be dealing with the first wizard of the avian world." Aiden laughed, appreciating Bram's creativity. Well, let's hope your leafy camouflage keeps our feathered master mage in the dark. As the last wisps of morning dew evaporated, Aiden and Bram ventured into the woods, their packs heavy with supplies and the cunningly modified trap. They navigated the underbrush with silent, measured steps, mindful not to alert the astute bird to their presence. Aiden led the way to his chosen spot for the trap, his eyes meticulously scanning the canopy for any glimpse of the elusive trickster. The trap, already primed with magical wards back at the bookstore, was simple to set up, provided they avoided touching certain sensitive points. Aiden secured it to a high branch and baited it with his finest concoction, a mixed fruit paste interspersed with seeds, irresistible to any bird. Next, he whispered an anchor spell, the words barely escaping his lips, as Bram had instructed. Although Aiden felt none of the magical flow the books had described, a discreet flash of light under his palm confirmed the spell's success. Concealed and quiet, the setup left no trace for the clever bird to suspect. Aiden and Bram trekked through the dense forest. The leaves rustled gently above them, creating a natural melody that accompanied their steps. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of pine and the earthy aroma of damp soil, a reminder of the forest's enduring presence. Light filtered through the canopy in patches, dappling the ground and highlighting the rich greens and browns of the underbrush that brushed against their legs. Reaching the ancient ruins, they paused to catch their breath. Their cheeks were rosy from the hike, and they set down their packs by the entrance to lighten their load. Aiden leaned against an aged tree trunk, taking in the area. The fresh scents of the woods and late afternoon light made the place a far cry from the dense and hot smithy. They descended into the hidden chamber with just their lanterns and essential tools. The air grew cooler as they stepped down, the change in temperature causing Aiden's skin to prickle. The passageway narrowed, the cool, moist walls of the tunnel almost echoing their careful footsteps. The chamber at the end of the tunnel was breathtaking. Its walls reflected the lamplights off their deep blue, reflecting the light from their lanterns in a mesmerizing display. The chamber wasn't exactly large, maybe 20 feet across. The silver magic circle with the unusual symbols was inscribed on the same polished deep blue floor. The silver reflected the lantern lights and gave the impression that it was glowing. Aiden stepped forward, his footsteps resonating softly. The circle's faux glow pulses with each movement of the lanterns. Bram joined him, eyes scanning the circle, a look of wonder etched across his face. "Where is the skeleton?" Aiden whispered. "Where is any dirt or dust?" Bram responded. Aiden was surprised by the question. He hadn't noticed that there wasn't even a speck of dust in the room. Every surface gleamed with a perfect shine. Bram shook his head slowly, his focus still on the magic circle. "I'm getting no sense of power here. These symbols are what we've been looking into." Aiden nodded, looking around the chamber with a renewed sense of curiosity. The mystery of what lay before them was enticing, the promise of ancient secrets nearly palpable in the cool air. "Maybe we can pull some details from this circle," Bram murmured, kneeling down to inspect the glyphs. Aiden smiled, the thrill of discovery igniting a spark of excitement within him. Then he noticed the other thing missing. Where are the glowing stars?
Want more? Check out reamstories.com/seeker. Thank you for listening. Before you go, please like, subscribe, and comment. I'd love to hear your comments on these stories, good or bad. These audio readings are produced with text-to-audio technology to keep costs down. To support producing these with greater quality and frequency, leading to the ability to use voice actors, there are two options. Option 1, and my personal favorite, go to reamstories.com/seeker and follow or subscribe to get early access, participate in the amazing community of listeners and fans, and thus support the writing, editing, and audio production. Or, option 2, go to patreon.com/LARTRA and become an audio production patron. Subscriptions sustain the serial writing projects and all their associated costs. Again, thank you for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this audio production.